With only 25 or so games left in the regular season, it's time to get crazy. Today, I want to give you guys some predictions, not only for the regular season, but for the postseason as well. If you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Kicking off here with Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, as I think it's that time, in Jimmy Butler's words, as I think not only is Jimmy Butler going to start playing better basketball, but the team will, especially in the win column. I think they flip that switch yet again, like they do each and every season, and they become a top 5 seed, maybe even a top 4. But I know that's a little bit of a stretch. But like I said, in the words of Jimmy Butler, it's that time. They have won 7 of their last 10, 5 of their last 6, and currently have the second easiest strength of schedule left. This Heat team is in a position where I think they're currently 6 or 7, where they can jump up these rankings, and significantly is a good way to put it. I will say, and we'll talk about this at the end of the episode, I don't know if they're going to have the same postseason success as last year, but who knows? Just like every other year, the Heat culture is real and they prove us wrong. But as of right now, for a regular season prediction, I think the Heat can flip that switch with this easy schedule, and given the fact that they're playing their best basketball of the season, and set themselves up in the postseason with a very familiar first round matchup. So my first prediction, Heat top 5 seed, and Jimmy turns it around. Moving over to my number 2 prediction, Luka will secure his first career scoring title. Right now, he's averaging 34.5 points. Absolutely insane. But hey, that's the kind of player Luka is. I mean, he's averaging basically a 34-point triple-double. But not only does he have his success to end the year, the team does as well, as the Mavericks will also avoid the play-in, which seems like it's the first time in Luka's career here where this team will make the playoffs while avoiding the play-in at the same time. But I just think that this is a dark horse title contender. They've been for me all season. It sounds crazy, right? But I think they got much needed size at the deadline, especially with PJ Washington spacing the floor and Daniel Gafford, of course, being the big man down low. They still have guys like Derek Lively who can play valuable minutes. Even as a rookie, Derek Lively is definitely in the rookie of the year race, more so as like a 5 or 6 on that ladder. But you guys get the picture. Derek Lively deserves his flowers, is a good way to put it. But Kyrie Irving, of course, has been amazing. I saw a stat the other day that he's one of the few players in NBA history. I think they showed a list of the top 10 ever to average 25 plus points and have less than 4 free throws a game. Kyrie, it dominates that list. 8 of his seasons are in the top 10. So Kyrie Irving, special player, and of course, one of the craftiest we've ever seen. But I just think with the star power that this team has, and with Luka Doncic playing at the level that he is, I think no doubt this Mavericks team can secure a top 6 seed, and Luka will get his first ever scoring title. Who knows? That might put him in a position to steal an MVP. We haven't been talking about Luka like that, but if you're averaging a 34-point triple-double and you're a top 6 seed, I think you have a valid case to why Luka should bring home some hardware in just a couple months. But then we move over to the Eastern Conference with Joel Embiid out for the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, he's been out for a couple of weeks now with that ACL or meniscus injury, whichever one it is. There's been various reports on whether he's going to come back this year. And honestly, for you guys at home, I think it all just depends on what position this team is in here in a couple months for the postseason. If this team is in a spot where they can compete for home court, I think he's going to come back, right? But if this team falls down the rankings like I predict them to, I don't think Joel Embiid is going to come back this season. And of course, why? Why come back and have to fight this uphill climb, of a battle just to make it to the playoffs? And then you're going to be playing some of the best teams in the league, to make it to the finals, where, if he's dealing with a banged up knee, the media is not going to cut him any slack. Where if he comes back on this banged up knee and plays poorly, again, due to this knee injury, I just think it's not good for his resume. It's not good for, the aura around Joel Embiid. But regardless, I think with him being out, whether if he comes back or not, for the regular season's sake, I think the 76ers will suffer, and they're going to fall down to being the 8th seed here in the Eastern Conference. I think, if Joel Embiid doesn't come back, this is a team that's going to be just like the Brooklyn Nets from last year, where they still have solid pieces. They could still make the playoffs. And of course, maybe put up a little bit of a fight in the first round, but without their star player in Joel Embiid, again, a guy who was going to run away with the MVP award for a second straight year. I just think that they're going to be a quick 4-game series in the postseason. Whether if they face a team like the Knicks, the Cavs, the Bucks, I think it's a quick 4-5 game series at the most. Unfortunately with Joel Embiid out, but Joel Embiid, I think his return status really depends on the next couple weeks of 76ers basketball. But on the plus side, Sixers fans, don't kill me. Don't put me through a table. Philly fans, of course, let's talk about it here. On the plus side, Tyrese Maxey is going to do what we all know he's going to do, and that is win the Most Improved Player award, as he was the popular pick in the preseason, right? And for good reason. Because he was great last year, especially in the postseason, and James Harden's gone. So someone else has to fill that burden. Of course, Joel Embiid's going to take a little bit of it, but Tyrese Maxey, we expected to take that huge jump. And I'll say this, I think a majority of us expected a jump from Tyrese Maxey, but not to this level, as, his counting stats jumped up about 5 points per game, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, which doesn't scream, most improved player. But when you look at the stats, and he's averaging 26, 4, and 6 on great efficiency, I might add. I know his 3-point percentage has taken a dip, but more volume, right? So let's take that into account as well. I think this is a guy that's currently trying to keep his team afloat, in the hopes that he can convince JoJo to return. Of course, I'm talking about Joel Embiid. But as of right now, just when you off the eye test, Tyrese Maxey just looks like a different player from last year. And whether if it's just him being a little bit more aggressive, searching for a shot just a little bit more than last year, of course, when he had James Harden to set him up. Whatever it is, I think just off the eye test, Tyrese Maxey looks like a better player this year, and rightfully so. He will win the Most Improved Player award. But also, there's some other guys around the league like Alperen Sengun. If his team won just a little bit more, he could have a little bit of a better case. There's some other guys around the league I'm forgetting at the moment. Kobe White is another guy that if his team won a little bit more, could be in this running to win the award. But at the end of the day, I think Tyrese Maxey, especially if he can keep this team as a top 6 seed, wrap it up. Wrap it up and, of course, ship it to Tyrese Maxey. You don't even have to announce the finalist for the Most Improved Player award. So Joel Embiid, he might not return this year, but on the plus side, Sixers fans, Tyrese Maxey brings home some hardware, right? So at least that's something. But then we would talk about the MVP award. And like I mentioned earlier in the episode, the MVP was pretty much locked up, until Joel Embiid got hurt with his knee injury. But with that injury, the field is now kind of wide open. You can make an argument for a lot of different guys, and I'm going to do that here. As for Anthony Edwards, he's the #1 seed in the West. He's the best player on that team, and he's having a career year. So Anthony Edwards has an argument for this award. For Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which you see on your screen, he is the #2 seed in the West. He's the leader of the youngest team in basketball, of course, averaging 37 and 7 or something crazy like that. And of course, like I mentioned, he's leading the youngest team in basketball to a top 2 seed in the better conference. So Shai deserves his flowers as well. Luka Doncic, he is the league leader in scoring. He does everything for his team. And of course, he's averaging like a 34-point triple-double. If he can get his team to a top 6 seed, I think he has a case to be the MVP this year. And of course, in the Eastern Conference, you still have guys like Giannis, who has that impact on the floor. If he can, get that team up to a 2 seed, a top 2 seed, Giannis could be in the running. Jason Tatum, of course, might be the popular pick in the Eastern Conference, as he's the best player on the best team, not only in the East, but in the entire NBA, and by a couple games, as I think the Timberwolves are the #1 seed in the West, excuse me, and they have 40 wins. The Celtics currently have 44, so I think the Celtics are going to run away with the best record in the league, no doubt about it. And Jason Tatum is the best player on that team, and he's having a career year, or at least off the eye test as well. So there's 4 to 5 other viable guys that could win this award. However, right, I think Nikola Jokic is going to take home his 3rd career MVP in 4 years. As to have this team as a top 3 seed in this stacked Western Conference. Sorry about the screen malfunctioning there. To have this team as a top 3 seed in the stacked Western Conference, with Jamal Murray missing a good part of the season, a good stretch of games. I don't know the exact number, but I can imagine it was around that 15 to 20 mark. Jokic is still averaging 26 points, 12 rebounds, and almost 10 assists a game. He's lining himself up to grab some more hardware. Of course, we're talking about the big MVP award. I just think, the popular thing to do is to to get one of these younger guys their first taste of the MVP award. And I love that. Let me be clear. I would prefer Anthony Edwards, Shea, Luka, Jason Tatum, one of these younger guys to get this award, or just another guy that deserves the award. However, I think the voters might, resort back to Nikola Jokic because of how much praise he gets on a weekly basis. It seems like, from fellow players. I think Jokic, due to all the advanced statistics, might take home this third MVP in 4 years. And then we're going to have to start talking about him in different conversations as far as one of the greatest of all time. But Nikola Jokic, I think, will rob these young guys of their first MVP and take home his third. Then we talk about the defensive side of things and Rudy Gobert. This award, I think was over at the midseason mark. And we talked about that when we did some midseason awards just a few weeks back. But Rudy Gobert is back, and so are the Timberwolves, as they have the number one defense, and they're the number one seed in the Western Conference. And Rudy is putting up great numbers, great defensive numbers, whether if you want to look at the hard counting stats or the advanced statistics. I don't think he gets enough credit, because he's always been, this year, I think the biggest change for Rudy Gobert has been on the perimeter. Over the years that he was dominating in Utah, when he got to the postseason, James Harden pull him out to the perimeter on an island. ISO, that's an easy basket. If it wasn't James Harden, it was somebody else. That was an easy way to take the defensive player of the year at the time out of the game and out of the picture in the postseason. This year, of course, that's going to still play in the guard's favor, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it once was. He's improved sliding his feet on the perimeter, being smarter, not, jumping, at the gun on certain things. And Rudy Gobert, I think that's the most underrated part of his game this year, was improving his perimeter defense. Of course, we know with the interior force that he is, but we'll just have to see if that can translate to the postseason as far as his perimeter defense. Regardless, what's interesting is that with voters fatigue we see in all sports, I think if Rudy had this kind of year and he was still in Utah, I don't know if he would win the award, again, just with voters fatigue. But now he has a chance to tie history. He has the storyline. We know the voters love that. And Rudy Gobert, I think, going to a new team and doing, having this much impact on a new team is the reason he's going to win his fourth Defensive Player of the Year award. And he's going to tie Ben Wallace and Dikembe Mutombo for the most all-time with 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. So shout out to Rudy Gobert. It's a much-deserved award, and at least I think he should get it at this point in the season. But speaking of the Timberwolves' greatness, we got to start from the top down with Chris Finch, of course, being the head coach to lead the way. And I think he's going to take home the Coach of the Year award. Of course, you saw in the thumbnail, and we're going to talk about it in a moment. Spoiler alert, I think the Timberwolves are going to finish with the number one seed in the Western Conference. And if they do, it'll be only the second time in franchise history that they achieved that mark. Of course, trivia for you at home. The last time they did that was, of course, when Kevin Garnett won the MVP, and that was back in 2003 and 2004, just about when I was born. Regardless, Chris Finch, I think, can take home the award this year, and just because of how great that this Timberwolves team has been, especially on that defensive side of the ball, to get guys like Anthony Edwards and to get guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, they're star players. They aren't defensive players. To buy in and to play a little bit more aggressive on that side of the ball this year, it's huge, and it's vital for why this team is the number one seed in the Western Conference and has a chance to make a deep playoff run. So like I said, this team has been a revolving door for coaches the last couple of years, but now it seems like they found the right one in Chris Finch. So shout out to him. I think he takes home the award this year. And hey, the Timberwolves have 2 guys that are taking home some very viable and invaluable hardware here going into the postseason. It's got to be good for the team morale, is a good way to put it. But then we talk about maybe this is a hot take, maybe not. I know the general media might be on board with me with this, but let's talk about it here. I think that Victor Wembanyama is going to be an all-defensive member as a rookie, despite his team's success, as it would be only the sixth time ever he would join greats of the likes of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1970, Hakeem Olajuwon in 1985, Manu Bol in 1986, David Robinson in 1990, and Tim Duncan in 1998. Would you look at that? The Spurs have two of those guys on that list. But that is the current list, and Victor Wembanyama would be the sixth man, no pun intended, in 2024. Again, the Spurs suck. When we look at the standings, when we look at just how they play on the court, they are 11-47. Absolutely terrible. But Wemby is still having a great individual year. He's averaging about a steal and a half a game, 3.5 blocks, something we haven't seen in a long time. And this is a guy that was recently the second rookie ever to break or to have a 5x5 game. If you're not sure what that is just having 5 and 5 of the, at least 5 in counting stats across 5 different categories. So, for example, points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. Wemby had 5 of them in a game against the Lakers recently. Now, I will say this. If what goes under the radar was his game before that. The game before that, he was 1 assist shy of getting 2 straight 5x5 games. Let me make this clear. There's only been I think I saw a stat. There's only been 28 5x5 games in NBA history. Victor Wembanyama almost had 2 of them in back-to-back games. This dude is a special talent, and his individual efforts should be recognized. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. Plus, I think it's good for the media to have the #1 pick living up to these expectations. So I think for the media aspect alone, they should go this route, and vote this man in. Okay, if you want to take team success into it and defensive analytics into it, sure, he shouldn't be a first team. But I think this guy has a legitimate case to be second team all defense next to guys like Jaden McDaniels and guys of that sort. But I think leaving a guy that has had this much defensive impact off of the list, even though his team sucks, would be a crime. So I think Victor Wembanyama, like I mentioned, it's also good for the media, should be an all-defensive member in 2023 and 2024. But let's talk about the Western Conference. The last prediction I have before we get into the postseason is about this Western Conference play-in, and I think it'll be the most stacked play-in ever. Because when we take a look at it, of course, you have teams like the Phoenix Suns right now at the 5 seed as of the morning I'm recording this. The Pelicans, Kings, and Mavericks are 5 through 8. But then you also have star-studded teams, or at least teams that have that star in the Lakers. Of course, LeBron and Anthony Davis, as well as a great supporting cast. Whether they're going to be relevant or not again in the playoffs, that's a different story. But the Warriors also, they're on the rise, as they are, I think this is kind of set for the Western Conference play-in. These are going to be your 5 or 6 teams here, but it just matters what order are they going to be in. Because, of course, we know 7 through 10 are, of course, in the play-in, and that plays a part here when we talk about the play-in in just a couple moments. But right now, the Suns, Pelicans, I don't know. The Pelicans, I think, have gone under the radar. They've had a great season, but I think we're all kind of waiting at home for some postseason success. Can they win? Because we've seen them win at the highest level, but they haven't done it with Zion. Can they do that? And Zion's not just kind of like a plug-and-play player. This is a guy that needs the ball a majority of the time. So I want to see them win with their best player and be this dangerous team that we know that they can be, because they have the depth, they have the star power, but can they put it together in the postseason? That's what we're waiting on for the New Orleans Pelicans. For the Phoenix Suns, of course, you have your big 3, even though they don't play together for the majority of the time. You have your big 3 and arguably 2 top 10 players in the world in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. For the Kings, of course, you have 2 star players, guys that are playing pissed off basketball, and that's dangerous. Not to mention Keegan Murray is on the rise. Mike Brown is still a great head coach, and their depth might not be as great as it was last year, but hey, you still have guys like Malik Monk who can come off the bench and be a 6th man of the year candidate. So you got to be on the on the lookout for those 3 teams. But then we get to the bottom 3. Luka Doncic and the Mavericks. I'm not going to go on a big tangent. If you want to hear me talk about them, go to any other NBA podcast. In all honesty, right? For the Lakers and the Warriors, it's the same case. They're teams that have the guy in Steph Curry and LeBron, but they just haven't put it together. Whether if it's the depth, whether if it's coaching, whatever the case is, these are teams that have the guy that you can trust in the playoffs, but they're going to have an uphill battle to climb And we saw the Lakers do it last year. Do they have enough gas to do it yet again this year? That is going to have to, we're going to have to wait and see. Same thing with the Warriors. Can they sneak into the playoffs? Because Steph Curry is Stephen Curry, and the Warriors have played decent basketball since the midseason mark, which is a little bit better than what they did in the first half of the year. But I think they're in a situation where Steph Curry is going to have to be Superman. We've seen him do it before. Can he do it again? Regardless, I think whatever combination of these six teams meet in the play-in, I think it's going to be the most entertaining and the most down to the wire play-in games that we've ever gotten here in the play-in in its history. But I think it's very exciting for us at home, as we're going to get, at the very worst, we're going to be getting Zion versus LeBron in a play-in game, which every time they play, they always go all out, excuse me. And of course, Anthony Davis plays his whole team in the Pelicans. I think that's like the worst case scenario for a play-in game. Maybe it's the Pelicans and Warriors. Whatever it is, I think we're going to have two solid teams in the play-in, making it the most stacked play-in of all time. I struggled there, but stick with me as we're going to get into the postseason now with the Western Conference. And what I want to do, I want to talk about the teams I think will be top four seeds. Then we're going to talk about the 5 and 6 seeds, and then we're going to throw in the play-in teams I think that can make it. But then we're going to finish it off with the two teams in each conference that I believe will make the conference finals. Of course, seeding and who you're playing makes a difference at the end of the day. But in the Western Conference, I'm not going to get cute. This is the order as of this morning, as the number 1 seed through 4 seed goes as follows. We have the Timberwolves, the OKC Thunder, two very young teams led by two very talented young superstars on the rise. The reigning champs at number 3, and of course the Los Angeles Clippers at number 4. I maybe should have used their new logo, and I think the world, as well as myself, found out that a Clipper is a boat as of yesterday, because the Clippers just rebranded here in, I don't know if it starts next year or the following year, but the Clippers rebranded, same colors, just a different logo. Regardless, that has nothing to do with today's video. These are going to be your top 4 teams in the Western Conference going into the postseason. Now, I think, of course, take a look. The Timberwolves and the Clippers, they're on the same side of the bracket. They're probably going to have to run into each other in a 7-game series. Same could be said for the young Thunder and the reigning champs in the Denver Nuggets. They're going to have to run into each other more likely than not. But that is the top 4 seeds in the Western Conference. In the 5 and 6 slot, we just talked about those 6 teams. All of them have a case. All of them can probably make this spot, except for probably the Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. Regardless, there's still 4 to 5 teams that have an argument to make the 5 seed, and I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, I think this is a team that is very solid. Of course, I talked about them. I talk about them every single week, it seems like, with how much I believe in this team and how much I have all season. I really think that this is a year where they can go back to the Western Conference Finals, maybe even go farther, right? I don't want to jump the gun, but Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and this supporting cast, I think, is enough for this team to finally get over that hump and avoid the play-in, but not only avoid the play-in, but make it pretty deep into the playoffs. We'll have to see, though. They have a very familiar matchup in the first round. Luka just can't escape the Los Angeles Clippers, and I guess you could say vice versa for the LA Clippers fans. At the 6th seed, it might be a hot take. It might be a hot take, and I'm okay with that. But I think that with the Phoenix Suns having the hardest schedule left in basketball without their third star in Bradley Beal, or at least we never know when that guy's going to play. This is going to put a lot of stress and a lot of mileage on guys like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant heading into the postseason. So for that reason, I think the Sacramento Kings, given the easier schedule and given that the fact that they have 2 pissed off superstars that, I wouldn't say superstars, but you guys get the picture, 2 pissed off stars that are playing their best career basketball, in my opinion, at the moment. And they have enough, I think, in the postseason to probably make a run. But I think when it gets down to the second half of the season, your rotation shorten and your star players have to shine. And I think the Kings have 2 guys that they can rely on in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. So that is my 1 through 6. And let's get into the play-in at the 7th seed out of all these teams that are still left. So we have teams like the Pelicans. We have teams like the Suns. We have teams like the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. Who's going to take that 7th seed? I think in the play-in, the Phoenix Suns will be either the 7th seed or the 8th seed. And in a 1-game scenario against the Pelicans, which is where I probably have the rating sitting at, or the standings rather, I think that I will bet money on the Suns in a one-game scenario over the New Orleans Pelicans. Might be a hot take. It seems like one of those games also where the Pelicans would, with their depth, win that game. Put Herb Jones on Kevin Durant or Devin Booker, and you of course trap the other star on the team, and really just have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant beat you and just shut down everybody else. That could be a strategy, and I think the Pelicans have enough depth and star power to take different routes that in a one game scenario against the Phoenix Suns. So honestly, if I had to change anything, I would probably have the Pelicans winning over the Phoenix Suns and matching up with the Thunder in the first round. Regardless, I like this storyline a little bit better. You get Kevin Durant in a playoff series against this former team in the Oklahoma City Thunder. And of course, they're the underdogs there in that series. Should be a great first round series. Regardless, that 8 seed, you can make an argument for all three of these teams. In a play-in scenario, it's just a matter of who's getting hot. Can the supporting cast get hot around LeBron James and AD like they did last year at this time? If they do, if they can, this is a team that yet again can make it to the Western Conference Finals. For the Warriors, you have Steph Curry. I'm going to put some respect on that man's name. And of course, at any moment, Klay Thompson, I feel like, can turn back the clock, even though it's unlikely. But Draymond's been playing great. Of course, they have, AirPods, at the 2, and he's been playing great even as a rookie. They always are in the mix. And then the New Orleans Pelicans, like I just mentioned, they have the depth, they have the star power. It's just we haven't seen them win with Zion at the biggest level, and that is, of course, the play-in or the postseason in general. Regardless, I don't think whether if it's the Lakers, Warriors, or Pelicans, they will make it out the first round because they play the number 1 seed. That's a lot of yapping, right? A lot of talking. But let's get back into it. So I think the 2 teams that will make it to the Western Conference Finals, again, look at the top half of the bracket and the bottom half of the bracket. The 2 teams I think that will make it, I'm going to be boring, but I think it is the Clippers at the 4 seed and the reigning champs in the Nuggets at the 3 seed. I think the Nuggets can go through the Kings, and the winner of the Thunder, I'll say it's the Thunder, right? I'll say the number 2 seed. I think I'll take the Nuggets in the series over the Kings and over the Oklahoma City Thunder, given the Thunder's youth. And in the top half of the bracket, it was really a 3-way tie. Do I want to go with the Timberwolves and their youth and their defensive excellence? Do I want to go with the Mavericks and, of course, how great they've been this year, or one of the play-in teams? I wanted to go with the team I believed in all season, the team I believed in prior to the year before they got James Harden, in the LA Clippers. I think, this is a team that has made some noise over the years, but we haven't seen their star duo healthy in the postseason. And whether if it was Kawhi Leonard or just Paul George, this team has made runs with just one of them. Imagine both of them. And I just think in a 7-game series, I'm going to trust Kawhi Leonard, who's always probably going to be the best player on the court unless he's in that Mavericks series. He's always either going to be number 1 or number 2 on the court. And then you still have 3 other first ballot Hall of Famers with the best head coach in the league. I love the Los Angeles Clippers to make it to the finals of the Western Conference. But when it comes down to this series, I don't have an answer for you. I don't have an answer for you. I think, it makes sense to go with the reigning champs. But if you want to switch it up, maybe the Clippers can go to the finals. Regardless, I think at the end of the day, these will be the last 2 teams in the Western Conference. Let's move over to the East. Same process here. The top 4 seeds, I think, are the same as they are as of right now. Or I think as of right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are the 3 seed. But the Milwaukee Bucks have a relatively tough schedule. I think they have a top 10 hardest schedule remaining in the NBA, while the Knicks are kind of towards the middle of the pack, right with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And for those reasons, I have the Eastern Conference top 4 as the Boston Celtics at the top. They're running away with it. They'd have to go on a big losing streak to lose this number 1 spot. The Cleveland Cavaliers at 2. Shout out to my Cavs. At 3, we have the New York Knicks. And at 4, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, with their star talent. I don't know whether if it's Doc Rivers or whatever the case may be. I'm going to have the Knicks with their depth, even though they're banged up, getting that extra edge here to close out the year. So that is my top 4. The 5 seed and the 6 seed are going to be, I spoiled it early in the episode, but the Miami Heat, I think, can win their way to the 5 seed, setting themselves up with a very familiar first-round matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Bucks come into that matchup with a chip on their shoulder, especially being that last year they were the 1 seed in this matchup, and they lost in 5. to the 8 seed Miami Heat last year. So they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. The Heat, they're going to be hot. They're going to be a hot team, and they're going to say, hey, the Bucks, we've had your number over the years. We're going to do it yet again. So very interesting and a very aggressive first-round matchup. It's going to be must-watch TV with those two teams. And then the 3 and 6 matchup, I think, is very interesting. When you have the younger Orlando Magic, who have the best theme song in the league. If you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to TikTok, go to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and just look up the Orlando Magic song. It's very catchy, and of course, we love to see it. But the Magic are just like the Heat, where both of these teams have a top 5 easiest schedule left. So the Magic can kind of, turn back the clock. They started the year off great. They kind of fell off because they hit a tough part of their schedule, but then they got hot. And I think they can get hot to end the season, excuse me. And they're going to set themselves up in a first-round matchup against the deepest team in the league, probably, and the New York Knicks. And I think that's just a very well-rounded matchup. It's going to be, an injured Julius Randle coming back to face P5, of course, Paolo Banchero. You're going to have guys like Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero getting their first taste of the postseason. I'm just very interested. I'm very excited to see this matchup, is a good way to put it. And I think, 3-6 matchup, whoever wins, I would be happy with. But, excuse me, of course, I don't know what's happening at the moment, but at the 7 seed, I'm going to go with the team that I told you guys would be a top 6 seed before the season. I think just with how the cards have fallen, I'm going to have them at number 7, but I still respect the team in the Indiana Pacers. Of course, as of right now, they have the greatest offense in NBA history. Of course, that's a revolving door of a statistic because it happens to a new team each and every season. But the Indiana Pacers, as of right now, led by Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. You still have guys on the wings like Andrew Nembhard, right? You still have Ben Mathurin. You still have Miles Turner, who's one of the most underrated players in the league. This team has the star players. They have the depth, and I think they have the coaching, the veteran head coach, the championship-winning coach in Rick Carlisle to, maybe be one of those, postseason darlings. However, the worry has been well documented. I kind of spoiled it there, but we're gonna start talking about it. The worries have been well documented that a team that plays this high paced, that gets this many threes up, they can go through, their hot streaks, but they can go through much worse cold streaks. And if they don't make their threes, to 2 straight games, to 3 straight games, they can find themselves being either a team that goes to the Eastern Conference Finals, or they can find themselves being swept in the first round. As crazy as that might sound, but they have the biggest range out of all these teams here in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, because they can either just outshoot you, no matter how good a defense you want to play, or they're gonna shoot themselves out of the playoffs and be a 4-game stay. But at the 8 seed, we talked about it. The Sixers and the Sixers, I think, with Joel Embiid's injury, might fall down to the 8 seed. And the Chicago Bulls, I think in a 1-game scenario with the Sixers and the Bulls, I think that's very interesting with how the Bulls have been playing better basketball. Of course, they're not, super hot, but if they've been playing better basketball, I think in a 1-game scenario, that screams DeMar DeRozan. That screams, hey, I'm going to get my team to the postseason. And even though we probably want to see the Philadelphia 76ers get it done, that might be a prime DeMar DeRozan game. This is their last dance in Chicago, version 2. It might be Nikola Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan saying, hey, I'm going to put the team on my back. Let's go out there and let's go into the postseason and try and make something out of this rendition of the Chicago Bulls, regardless of who it is. I think, you can even throw the Atlanta Hawks in there. Maybe they can get hot and win this 8 seed. But regardless, just like the Western Conference, I don't think it'll matter. I think the Celtics will take care of business. I think the Heat and the Bucks, very interesting first-round matchup, can go either way. Same with the 3-6 and the 2-7 matchup. But at the end of the day, if I had to put money on it, I kind of spoiled it there 30 seconds ago. But I think the Celtics and the New York Knicks, 2 of the deepest teams in the Eastern Conference, and you can argue the 2 deepest teams in the league, I think they will match up in the Eastern Conference Finals, as you have the star talent in the Boston Celtics, but then the well-roundedness led by Jalen Brunson in the New York Knicks. I just think it's it's going to be a hard-fought 7-game series where at the end of the day, maybe Jason Tatum gets them over the top, or maybe Jalen Brunson continues to prove us wrong, and maybe he is the one that steps up. As we've seen Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have their droughts in the postseason, maybe Jalen Brunson's that guy where he steps up and brings this Knicks team back to the NBA Finals. Can you imagine that? They have the team to do it. I'll say that. But to play it safe, these are the final two teams in the Eastern Conference. So my final four teams would be the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Celtics, and the New York Knicks. Of course, they're not crazy hot takes, but that when the postseason comes, sometimes 2 plus 2 just equals 4. You don't have to have a playing team make the finals for the second year straight. Let's remember that that's history. What the Lakers and the Heat did last year, bringing 2 playing teams to that far into the postseason. But ultimately, quicker episode today, I feel like. But that is gonna do it for today's show. If you guys enjoyed, of course, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear me for more and for more episodes in the future. I can't even talk straight, right? I'm trying to get you guys to buy in. But if you guys will, enjoy, drop a like, subscribe, and of course, we drop 2 podcasts a week each and every week. But this week is special because it's the start of 3 podcasts a week. You heard it, 3. And that third episode is going to be on Saturdays with NFL draft content. So, of course, this week we have the NFL draft combine, which is very exciting. So whether if it's on Saturday or Sunday, I'm going to be releasing a podcast of my overall thoughts about different prospects in the class. We're going to be saying, hey, who are the biggest risers and who are the biggest fallers after the NFL draft combine? We're going to talk about it all, our overall thoughts here either on Saturday or Sunday, which is my birthday. So again, if you need another reason to show out, please do that here for that first NFL draft video. On Thursday, we're going to be going through some more rankings. Of course, you guys loved that last week. That video kind of blew up. So we're going to do it yet again, but we're going to focus on the offensive side of the ball, talking about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. You guys get the picture. But that is going to do it. And without further ado, I'll see you guys on Thursday. But until then, stay happy, stay healthy. I'm out of here.